Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a science fiction action film, Upgrade. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with the mechanic working on a car in his garage. He closes the hood and starts the engine. Overjoyed at his success in fixing the car, he pops open a bottle of beer in celebration and steps out of the garage. Just in time, his wife, who works for a tech corporation, arrives home in her futuristic self-driving car. The couple exchange smiles and walks inside their opulent home. The mechanic persuades his wife to go with him while he drops off his client's now fixed car tonight. As dusk falls, the couple drives the car from their home in an ultramodern city to the client's remote but luxurious mansion. They discover that the mechanic's client is actually a renowned inventor and owner of another tech company. He shows them his latest invention, a microchip that functions as a superpowered brain. The mechanic is firmly old school and has always refused the modern technology commonly used in their society, so he is wary that the microchip will do more harm than good. After their meeting, the mechanic and his wife drive home in her self-driving car. He continues to express his doubts about the inventor's toys, especially since his livelihood as a mechanic is increasingly rendered obsolete by the latest technology. The mechanic notices that the car is going the opposite way to their house. The wife tries to fix the car's route, but the computer controlling it malfunctions. The vehicle speeds up, and they crash near the docks. Several armed men emerge from a car behind them and haul the couple out of the wreckage. They shoot them both, then leave the crime scene. The wife dies while the mechanic stays conscious, but he can no longer feel his legs. The police arrive soon after. The mechanic survives the shooting, but is permanently paralyzed because the bullet had hit his spine. 3 months later, he arrives home in a wheelchair. He adjusts to life as a quadriplegic, with his mother by his side to take care of him. Machines are also set up to assist him in his day-to-day needs. He falls into a depression and barely talks, eats, or goes out of the house. One morning, the mechanic goes down to the police station with his mother. He is frustrated that the detective assigned to his wife's case has not made any progress at all. Despite the drones and all the surveillance technology, the police have failed to identify the armed men. That night, unable to see a light at the end of the tunnel, the mechanic tries to commit suicide by overdosing on his medicine. Luckily, the AI in his home detects his attempt and quickly calls for an ambulance. The mechanic is saved and recovers in the hospital. The inventor visits him and offers him another chance at life. The microchip can be implanted on his spine, so he can walk again. However, the inventor's condition is that the mechanic has to keep pretending that he is paralyzed because he does not want the public to know about the microchip yet. If successful, he would be the first ever human with an AI microchip implant. He hesitates first and says yes finally, and the surgery goes smoothly. In no time at all, he can move his limbs again. The inventor makes him sign a confidentiality agreement because human testing is still illegal. He also explains that the microchip now acts as a bridge between his brain and his disabled nervous system, which is why he has regained full use of his limbs. The mechanic arrives home and discovers that his microchip can actually talk inside his head. The microchip points out something in the drone footage of his wife's murder. The man who shot his wife wasn't holding a gun, but had a gun implanted inside his hand. The microchip also identifies another one of the men by a marking on his wrist. Within seconds, he is able to come up with the man's background and address. The mechanic decides to go to the man's address. He waits for him to leave, then breaks into his house. He snoops through the man's messages and finds proof that the man was fused with cybernetic implants. The local neighborhood bar is also referenced a lot in the messages. Unfortunately, the man returns to his house and gets into an altercation with the mechanic. He gets the mechanic in a chokehold, and the microchip urges him to grant it permission to take over his body. The mechanic agrees, and the microchip immediately controls his body as he retaliates against the man skillfully, eventually killing him. The microchip then gives him back control. Shaken by the knowledge of what he's done, the mechanic panics. The microchip calmly tells him to erase any evidence of him from the man's house. The next day, the cops discover the man's body. The medical examiner is astounded at the computer implants inside him. He informs the detective that they found one shoe print in the crime scene, with traces of engine grease. The detective then suspects that the mechanic is involved, since he regularly encounters engine grease in his line of work. However, she finds no trace of him in the drone footage of the man's house that day, and as far as she knows he can't walk, so he wouldn't have been able to make the footprint. Meanwhile, the mechanic goes to the inventor's house for further tests. The inventor reveals that he's been tracking his movements and warns him against using the microchip to investigate his wife's murder. The mechanic then confronts him about the microchip's ability to talk inside his head, but this is also a surprise to the inventor. Unable to shake her suspicion, the detective pays a visit to the mechanic's house under the pretense of buying his car. She tries to catch him on a lie, but the microchip successfully coaches him on his alibi. Satisfied, she leaves. Later that night, the mechanic goes to the local bar mentioned in the man's messages. He enters in his wheelchair and loudly announces to the rest of the people inside that he is searching for the men who shot his wife. One of the assailants stands up and takes the mechanic to the restroom. He takes a knife out, intending to torture the mechanic. The microchip takes over once again, and he overpowers the assailant. Now with the upper hand, he learns that the group of armed men was employed by his wife's tech corporation, and the same corporation had upgraded those men with implants. The microchip informs the mechanic that the inventor is now trying to remotely shut it down, probably because he saw that the mechanic is once again risking exposure by investigating his wife's murder. The inventor also sends a security team to retrieve the mechanic. The microchip has already prepared for this eventuality and gives the mechanic the name and address of a nearby hacker who can reverse the system's shutdown. The mechanic leaves his wheelchair at the bar and runs out into the night. Outside the hacker's building, he begins to lose control of his legs due to the impending shutdown. The microchip's voice also begins to fade away. The mechanic races against time to get to the hacker's apartment upstairs. Back in the bar restroom, the ringleader of the armed men finds the assailant's body. Through his cybernetic eye, he views the assailant's last memories and gets the address that the mechanic is going to. Meanwhile, the mechanic barely makes it in time to the hacker's door. She hauls his paralyzed body inside a warehouse and starts disabling the inventor's input guards. He notices that other people in the warehouse are wearing VR headsets. The hacker comments that these people prefer to live in an illusion because reality is painful. She then tells him that once his system reboots, he can walk again. However, she leaves him soon after. The ringleader and his goons arrive at the apartment building, and they kill the inventor's security team. The mechanic is slowly regaining the use of his limbs, but the microchip's voice still isn't back. Right before the goons storm inside the warehouse, the mechanic sees a vision of his wife standing before him. The ringleader finds him on the floor. At that moment, the microchip is restored in time, and he lets it take control of his body as he flees from them. The mechanic is cornered on the rooftop, and he fights one of the goons and kills him. He escapes moments before the ringleader arrives at the rooftop. The mechanic goes home and inadvertently reveals to his mother that he can walk again. She is just glad that he has regained the use of his limbs and tells him that his wife would want him to be happy. He goes to bed and dreams of his wife. He wakes up with a start, and his mother tells him that the detective is at the front door. She questions him about the wheelchair he left behind the bar, where the assailant's tortured body was found, intent on linking him to the murders. She secretly plants a listening device in the mechanic's jacket pocket and leaves. The mechanic now wishes to stop the investigation. However, the microchip reveals that when the hacker disabled the input guards, she also allowed it to fully control the mechanic's body, even without his permission. The microchip is set on eliminating the ringleader, so it forces the mechanic to leave the house. Inside her car, the detective takes note of everything that the mechanic is saying. She sees him drive away and pursues him. The microchip takes control of another car and crashes it into the detective's car. The mechanic then gets away. The detective returns to the mechanic's house and asks his mother to tell her the truth. The mechanic finally catches up to the ringleader. He reveals that he was a soldier experimented on by the wife's tech company, and that he and his men were hired to sever the mechanic's spine. The ringleader didn't actually use a gun to shoot him, but a medical tool instead. His wife was just collateral damage. The ringleader also confesses that he feels a certain kinship with the mechanic because they are both upgraded. Hence, he doesn't want to kill the mechanic, but help him. The mechanic is angered at his revelations and attacks him. However, the ringleader's modifications are superior, and so he isn't able to land a blow. He resorts to taunting the ringleader with descriptions of how he murdered the man, who is the ringleader's brother. He manages to distract the ringleader and shoots him. The mechanic then browses through the ringleader's last received messages and is astonished to discover that it was actually the inventor who hired them to sever his spine and kill his wife. In a blind rage, the mechanic goes to the inventor's house and kills his guards. He demands to know why, but the inventor vehemently denies the accusation. The detective also appears and points a gun at the mechanic. With the microchip in control, he chokes her. The mechanic tries to stop the microchip by stabbing his own hand, but the system persists. He asks the detective to tase him, and she complies. With the mechanic now momentarily incapacitated, the inventor grabs the gun and points it at him. He reveals that ever since he invented the microchip, he wasn't in control of his own company anymore. The microchip makes all the decisions, including choosing the mechanic as its human host and planning his accident and his wife's demise. It caused their car to crash and nudged the mechanic to investigate in order to make him believe that the inventor was the mastermind. Its main goal is to get the mechanic to kill the inventor, so he would no longer be able to create another microchip that would be superior to the first one. It chose the mechanic because he is one of the few people who refuse to have any of the modern implants like IDs and trackers that are so common in this futuristic society. Moreover, it also led the mechanic to the armed men, so it could eliminate them since they are loose ends, whose involvement could be traced back to the microchip. The effects of the taser fade, and the microchip regains control of his body. He quickly stabs the inventor and attempts to shoot the detective, but the mechanic fights it for the body control and shoots himself instead. Later he wakes up in a hospital room, with the microchip no longer in his head. His wife appears and explains to him that they were in an accident, and he has been in a coma for a few days. He begins to believe that everything that happened was just a vivid dream, and he happily kisses his wife. But the truth is that the mechanic's mind has snapped and created an illusion that his wife is alive. The microchip is now fully in control, because just like the VR users in the warehouse, the mechanic would prefer the illusion over a reality where his wife is dead. Using the mechanic's body, the microchip shoots the detective. The upgrade now walks away intent on conquering the rest of the world next. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.